Look at that. So I'm in New Hampshire, and going to be going around New Hampshire and Maine for the next couple weeks. This is a video that I've been wanting to do for a long time. This is an old pulp mill. They would make products and then ship them off to be made into paper. 1800s, turn of the century. Very interesting piece of history here. But even more interesting than that is I came across years ago, a blog. Someone had posted pictures from the 1990s where they got the turbines out of here, and the very, we'll say, unconventional way, but very clever way that they got those turbines out of here. But I'm going to show you the property. I'm going to tell you some history. I'm even going to show you this very rare, possibly the only one left in the US of its kind, this pumpkin seed bridge. I'm going to walk over there, but I'm going to tell you this story and kind of basically show you the pictures from that blog because it's so fascinating, and get inside the old underside of the original pulp mill, paper mill here. So if you clicked on this video, you're in for a really interesting story and some really interesting history. So pulp mills and paper mills right in this area have a long history here. 1700s. There were buildings here, a couple of them burned down, and it's hard to say. I couldn't really find the exact date that this specific mill was built, but it's safe to say it was the 1800s. It was purchased by a man named J.E. Henry in 1899, and he was making, or they were basically selling pulp products, which is what's used to make paper. And then he discovered, hey, I can do this on my own. I can make paper. So he started making paper. So it really was, at that point, it became a paper mill. So this is obviously some sort of makeshift dam, but originally the water was redirected. Now it flows around, but part of it was redirected down into here. And then actually you can see through it. The water would go through, and that's where the turbines were. The water would come in and spin the turbines and make power for the building. So these were basically like filters. So they would keep all the debris and all the trees, logs, floating debris from going in there. I'm sure they would have to be scrubbed once in a while. And then fast forward into the 1990s, I believe it was the 1990s, a business called the French River Land Company. These two guys that specialize in hydroelectric power, small and micro hydroelectric turbines and things like that. They contacted the owner of this property, and they said, hey, can we purchase the turbines that are still down below, inside, built into this pulp mill? The owner said, yeah, sure, you guys can get them out, but you got to figure out how to do it. And that's what this blog is about. It's very interesting how they documented the step-by-step procedures. So I'm going to be sharing some of those photos and telling you how they did this. Very unconventional, but which made it very, very interesting. Look at that. So that's, you can see the water would flow back out of here. I believe that after the water was redirected, went down underneath the mill into the turbines, used to spin the turbines, it would then exit out and back out to the river again. Look at all this random stuff from past floods and things like that. And they're stuck in the ground pretty good, but there's just pipes and pieces of discarded equipment just haphazardly everywhere. All right, this is inside what is left of the paper mill or pulp mill. I believe this closed down in 1955. So by the time the guys had gotten to this and attempted to start taking the turbines out, it had been decades of overgrowth and decay. So it was going to be a monumental task. They needed a crane at first. First, they needed to figure out how to even get these turbines out of here, and then they needed a crane to lift them up. I don't know how high it is, but it's maybe 40 feet or something that they had to get these out of here. I don't think I can get down this way, but I can show you at least. So they were down in here, and actually you can still see where they cut some of these out. Look at how, I mean, I'll get down there and show you, but how thick the steel is. So they bought an old crane for $1,200, hadn't run in 20 years, old Lima 34. Luckily, they just changed the fluids and it started running. Now, once the guys got here with the crane and they were preparing to figure out how they were gonna get all their equipment down here, the torches and everything they needed, it was at that time where they saw two kids on top of this bridge. It's 100 feet from the very top, it's 100 feet. And watched them jump down into the river. And they said that they proceeded to try to go call the ambulance somewhere, and then the kids ended up swimming out and they loved it. They were gonna do it again. They probably did it all the time. Wow, look at the giant pieces that they cut out. That steel is so thick. Cast iron, steel, whatever it is. And we'll have to take note that that ground doesn't look very safe there anymore. So this is down inside here. Now this would have been all paper mill, but of course it's gone now. But I believe they had to bring the crane right here, sitting up there somewhere, I believe. Maybe 30 feet or so, 35 feet, they had to lower the boom down to get to this area. And this is really where the business end of the operation happened. So now I believe they had to cut this open first. And then, as they said, they had to get 40-year-old bolts off of that to get them out. Look at this. Still sitting here from the day they cut it. Just melted it. Just regular oxyacetylene would not melt it. They could not cut through it. So they used liquid nitrogen mixed with oxyacetylene. So there's some photos here of them delivering their liquid nitrogen to run the torches, minus 300 degrees Fahrenheit. This will cool a 6-pack in 6 seconds, he wrote. It will freeze the 6-pack solid in 10 seconds. It definitely took them a few days to cut these out. I think they had to do just a little bit. Each person would take turns. It started out with 2 guys, and I think more and more people were helping them out. They could only do so far and be exposed to that extreme heat so much, and then they'd have to switch off. He writes about how they had to soak their clothes, wear a shirt or something over top of their head so it didn't burn their scalp as they're sitting there trying to cut this stuff out. And then one of those days, they were working along here, probably creating a huge amount of smoke. And they look up and they see the local fire department and police up here. Someone had called in a forest fire, and they said, no, it's just us. We're cutting these things out of here. I'm sure they were probably like, what the heck are you guys doing? Probably a funny story that to this day they laugh at. Not sure what this was all about, but they cut into here as well. And this goes way down into another basement, or as they said, the abyss. And you have to be fairly careful walking across this thing. I mean, I'm staying on the beam here. Oh, and this is an interesting photo. The beast reluctantly emerges from its lair. It had hibernated for 29 years. Here we had to stop because the pulley we were using to change the load direction extruded itself out of a piece of 8-inch pipe. It is risky business doing jump rope with a 3/4-inch cable that is suddenly and explosively unloaded. And you can see in this one photo, this thing stands, every bit of 5.5 feet tall. That's right outside where I was standing before. So after everything was said and done, they managed to haul those beasts up, get them on a truck, and ship them out of here, where I believe they sold them, and then they were paid to restore them and install them. But such an interesting story that came out of an old abandoned pulp mill that probably no one would normally care about. I did see some information on this bridge where it said this underdeck twin upper and lower lenticular truss bridge built by Berlin Iron Bridge Company of East Berlin, Connecticut, may be the only surviving one of its design remaining in the U.S. Nicknamed the Inverted Pumpkin Seed Bridge. In 1886, a two-span, 263-foot-long inverted double-bowed pumpkin seed type wrought iron bridge was constructed 103 feet above the river at Livermore Falls, remaining in service until 1959, when the cast span was cut loose and allowed to drop into the gorge to prevent any further crossings. They cut pieces of it and actually collapsed it down into the gorge. That rock wall, there's a gorge on the other side. So it's kind of like hanging down there, which you can see from the drone, but that's what I read, that there's at least very few of them like this left. So that's the story. Pretty interesting one. Hope you liked it. Coming to you from just the bottom of the White Mountains. This is the Livermore Falls. If you want to check it out for yourself, I'm going to be traveling around New Hampshire and Maine for the next couple weeks. So stay tuned for some interesting videos. I'll see you in the next one.